All right, it's the bye weekend, and I'm gonna give y'all a little bit of a gift today. Normally, I don't do this, but I'm gonna talk draft possibilities and free agents. Yep, happy holidays. We'll do it today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen, and you can find us wherever you listen to or watch podcasts. Make sure you tap in so you do not miss an episode. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Shout out to the everydayers again for joining us here today. And here's what we're going to discuss: draft possibilities. That's where we're going to end up, because that's where the player procurement ends up. That's the last thing they'll do. Before that, free agents. We're going to talk about that too. Tell you in both situations, I'm going to tell you what I think the approach probably should be without even knowing who the coach and the GM are, or whether or not they're going to even make a change. But I'll even throw in a couple of scenarios and put a couple of names in there to give you an idea of the directions that the Jags going to go. We're going to start with the biggest needs at the very top. An influx of talent. I know everybody's going to say the biggest need is the new GM. I got it. Some people might even say the biggest need is for Shad Khan to sell the team. Ain't going to happen. We ain't going to go there. The biggest need is, look, we're going to assume for this, and it probably really, well, it does matter, but it probably doesn't matter for this exercise. We're going to assume that they're going to have a new coach and they're going to have a new GM. And we're going to assume that it's who y'all want it to be, Ben Johnson or Ian Cunningham or the assistant from Detroit, even though I'm telling y'all, Ian Cunningham is thought of in higher circles around the league than anybody. So let's just get to it. Let's get to it. The biggest needs for this team, things that will affect their identity. You can either build up the strong areas of your team and make those areas the H. Ross Perot. Some of y'all young people might not even know who H. Ross Perot is, but just go look it up. But his approach is take the thing that you do really well and make it better and make it great. That's an approach. Or you can attack your weakness. Now, I will tell you, the weaknesses, in my opinion, are things that need to be attacked multiple times. Like the offensive line is the first thing that comes to mind, right? You can't fix it with one person. But you can't start fixing it until you add one person, and then you add another person and another person. So those are the dilemmas. And there's not one thing that's going to fix anything. And I can't be guilty of the thing that I criticize people for. Like last year, I was talking about the offensive line, and all people wanted to do was say, we better get us a wide receiver. I agree. You can do both, right? And then there were people like, we need a new center. Jackson Powers Johnson. He's not even playing center in the NFL. I think somebody has him at backup guard right now. So you just can't be so myopic that you focus on the biggest need. The biggest need isn't always the first thing that you go and get. It probably is the thing that's the priority. But if you go into the grocery store, I've given off this analogy before. If you're going to get some things that you need, and the biggest thing you need is some meat, ain't nothing wrong with going to the meat first. But if you're passing by other things that you're going to need on the way to the meat, you might as well just grab them while you're at it, right? So it's about that approach, and it's about you can't create something that's not there, right? You may need something, but if it's not there, if it's not available, you got to do the best you can. So the biggest needs, in my opinion, for this team, I would start with the offensive line. I would then look at the defensive backfield at multiple positions, a corner as well as a quarterback in the middle of the field. I would also say that the interior of the defensive line definitely needs fortifying, even though they have young people that they've invested in. That's going to require a little bit more of development. But there's also something else. I think they need another wide receiver. And the reason why is because imagine if you get Brian Thomas Jr. and then you get another one. He doesn't have to have the exact same skill set. And most people want their wide receiver room to look a little different or differently. So I'm assuming that Christian Kirk, unless he takes a pay cut, won't be here. I'm also assuming that Gabe Davis contractually is probably still going to be here, but Gabe Davis is going to be Gabe Davis. And that's not a slight towards Gabe. a super professional guy who's always been very cordial, but Gabe Davis was let go in Buffalo for a reason. And he's not a number 2, in my opinion. I'll just say that. And when you look at those positions, with the Jaguars being the number, picking first or picking somewhere near the top, they're first right now. I don't know if they'll end up with that because they have to play the Titans twice, and they might beat them. And then they got some other very, very winnable games. But we assume they're going to end up in the top 5. The good news for the Jacksonville Jaguars is this. It's twofold. One, there are players that I am very high on in the top 5-ish area that fit everything the Jaguars need. If they want a left tackle, they can get a left tackle. If they want a corner, they can get a corner. If they want Tre'Torian McMillan, the best wide receiver, they're probably going to have a chance to get him too. If they want a defensive tackle, the kid up in Michigan is unreal, right? So, and these are plug and play guys. And not only are they plug and play guys, they are the type of dudes who have the sort of work ethic. If you want a cornerback, there's going to be Travis Hunter, there's going to be William Johnson. They're everything the Jaguars conceivably need, there will be a player that matches that position, that has good football character and has a high upside. So that's one thing that works in their favor. The key for me is, what about the second 5 from 6 to 10? Are there players that are comparable? Like, for instance, let me give you an example. If the Jaguars were picking in the top 5 last year and all of those receivers were there, is there Brian Thomas Jr. somewhere where the Jags can target him, move back, get another first-round pick and a second-round pick, and get a whole bunch of stuff to move back and still end up with perhaps, I said perhaps, the best wide receiver of all of those guys with Brian Thomas Jr.? Those are all possibilities. If they do that, they'll get a bounty for whatever player that they move back for, and then they'll get the player that they want. And if you trust the GM, like even Trent Baalke, everybody wants him fired, and people don't believe he did a good job. He might have sat there and drafted the best wide receiver in the draft. If they did a redraft, Brian Thomas Jr. would be a top 7 pick, in my opinion. So that's a lot of value. And, just because I don't care for him as a GM doesn't mean that Trent didn't do some things well. And you lie to yourself if you want to, but Trent Baalke actually did something good with that. And if I'm him, that's the one thing I'm walking into the office and trying to save my job with. I say, look at the value I got. I'm hot, man. Let me go at least give it one more time. I can get another Brian Thomas Jr., right? And then you look at the second round of Mason Smith. He's a healthy scratch all the time. And you're like, no. A broke clock is right twice a day, but thank you. And you did do something very, very good. And he absolutely did. What if the new GM, if there is one, and like for this exercise, there is a new GM, what if he can do that too? What if he can do that too? Give Trevor Lawrence more than one catch radius guy. You don't have to stop. You know what I'm saying? Just because you get one great wide receiver, get another one. Some people may say that that's not a good use of resources. Well, it depends what's there later in the draft. Before we even get to the draft, there's this thing called free agency. And there's one particular player I am looking at. Actually, there's 2. So I'm going to go through both of them and tell you what position. Now, this also plays into what can you get now versus what can you get in the draft. I told you can get everything you want in the top 5, maybe top 6, top 7, right? Does that affect what you go after in free agency, which comes prior to the draft? It very well might. I'll talk about that and more here as we continue on the Friday edition of Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by BetterHelp. If you're considering therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's completely online, right? All you got to do is just fill out the application, right? And then a brief questionnaire, rather, and then get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. It is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. There's a lot of reasons for therapy. Overcoming death in the family, personal pain management, not having enough time to spend with your family, missing people, especially this time of year when you're getting close to Thanksgiving, man, it could really, really send you over the top. And sometimes you need the help you need to get back on track. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And today's show is also brought to you and sponsored by our friends over at Game Time. Buying tickets, have to wait till payday. Payday is the same day as the event. Don't worry about it. You can get there once the event starts, and Game Time will still take care of you because they specialize in people buying tickets late, and they also specialize in giving you the lowest price guarantee, Game Time ticket coverage, seat views, all in pricing, and then they have a curation process that allows you to get through the fluff and get right to the tickets that you want to purchase. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On NFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. All right, moving along here on Locked On NFL. Locked On Jaguars. It is Locked On NFL. It's Locked On Jaguars on Locked On NFL. It is bye week, and I'm giving a gift to my fans that are always asking me questions. And you know what? Let me correct that. It's not fans. To our people, to our everydayers, to the people that join this, it's like a brotherhood, a partnership, right? They always want to know about draft stuff. And normally I don't do it because I'm immersed in whatever is going on with the team right then. However, because there's a bye week, I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of a gift and give you something to think about, ponder, and to argue with me about on social media. Free agents. There are two free agents that I think bode absolutely well for the Jaguars. Now, mind you, one of these players won't stop you from adding other players at that position group. The other one just might alter how early you reach out and grab somebody. Okay, so let's start on the defensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, there is no way the 49ers will be able to re-sign Charvarius Ward. They've already chosen the corner that they're going to keep, and I believe his name is Lamore. They're going to keep him. They've already re-signed him. They have a bunch of other people making a whole bunch of money. They're not going to do it. They paid him once. He's a nice football player, about 6'1", 200, long, a lot like Tyson Campbell, and has most of his experience playing on the left side of the defense. So if they go corner, that would probably take them out of the William Johnson. He has a William Johnson type body too. And I don't know if they're going to have two high-paid corners. You probably would want one, like they have Tyson Campbell as a veteran, and then the other corner might be a dude on a rookie deal. So there's also help in that area in the second round, especially at the top of the second round. So I would understand them not doing that in free agency, but he's there, he's available. Javon Holland, if the Dolphins allow him to stay on the free agent market. Y'all remember Javon Holland, a real good player a couple of years ago when the Jaguars were in the safety market. He was one of the players, along with Trayvon Merrick, that everyone thought the Jaguars should go after in the draft. Well, they're both coming up on free agency now. And Javon Holland, to me, is the better player. He's the one that caused the fumble of Travis Etienne on week 1 that started the Jaguar season off, that eventually allowed the Jaguars or pushed the Jaguars to be where they are now. They got off to a very, very slow start after playing well for almost 3 quarters in that game. And then that one play changed everything. So I believe at safety, that is something that they are going to consider. Once the season ends, I don't believe they're going to move on Andre Sisco. I think they're going to probably let him hit free agency. Availability, up and down play, inconsistency, all of those things. I think he's a real good player. I just think he'll have to go somewhere where somebody can use him properly. So that's a possibility on the defense in free agency. On the offense, there's one dude. We're going to pay the Chiefs back for giving Jawan Taylor, offering him $20 million a year. I want the Jaguars to get Trey Smith, the right guard from Kansas City. I think he's going to be the top offensive line free agent on the board, and you're going to have to pay him. You're going to have to give him a bunch of money. Guards for making $100 million last year over 4 and 5 years. You're going to have to do it if that's what you want. But I would turn around and look at Trevor Lawrence and figure out that that's a really, really good reason to pay premium for a young man who I think is a real, real good football player, big, physical, can get it done in a bunch of different ways, will allow you to now have Trey Smith right next to Anton Harrison if you choose to leave Anton Harrison at right tackle. Now you're young, you're athletic. You got guys, two guys that can really, really compete. And now you start to be serious about putting a security force around Trevor Lawrence. Another thing that I would consider, and I know a lot of people don't like this one, Garrett Bowles at left tackle. He's he'll be 33. But he's top 5, I believe, this year in pressures. He's healthy. Somebody said online, well, too bad he sucks. Is not playing well. I don't know what y'all looking at or where you heard that from, but that is a flat out lie. Garrett Bowles has absolutely been lights out this year for the Denver Broncos. I know you're only going to have him for 2 or 3 years. But to me, I think you're going to have 2 or 3 years of very high play with him. Until he's like 35 years old. You know, guys are playing a long time at that position, especially when recent history, they haven't had a lot of injuries. So I would really, really look at that as a possibility, because then I would not have to use that position in the draft. But I'll also get proven help for Trevor Lawrence up front. And I think if you add both of those guys to Anton Harrison and then maybe come back and address the offensive line again, even later in the draft, or find one of those guys on the roster right now that can really play. If you like Ezra Cleveland, fine. If you don't, let's just have competition, or either go out and in the veteran market and get another dude. The time for all of the guesswork when it comes to the offensive line should be over. I'm not taking a chance anymore. I am using so many resources to make sure that Trevor Lawrence is protected properly, and I think this is the way that they should possibly go. So I gave you some names, and I gave you a beginning strategy for the offseason player procurement. That's free agency. Now let's do the draft. We're going to do some draft possibilities. And for that sake, I'm going to say that they add Javon Holland, Trey Smith, and Garrett Bowles. And I know Shad said, look, man, we ain't going to be doing this. We're going to be a draft and develop team. Yeah. So the Jaguars are going to do exactly three people, and then maybe let some people go and save some money and move some things around. But those are the 3 positions I think they need to go. Now, 2 of those spots, if you think about it, if they re-sign Walker Little, well, there's your left tackle. That's on the spot that they're going to address anyway. So I don't think this is out of the question, right? You pay a little bit more for Garrett Bowles, who's older, but is more consistent, and you're more sure about him. And then if they re-sign Andre Cisco, they were going to address safety anyway. So now you just go out and get, all things being equal, they're not yours once the season's over. You don't have to keep a guy just because he's your dude, especially with a new staff. So now what you're going to do is, once free agency hits, you're just going to treat them like they're on the open market, and you're going to put them. It's almost like the transfer portal. That's what you're going to do. I'm going to take the best player. So if I'm going to keep or make sure I sign a tackle, or if I sign a safety, I'm going to get the 2 best that I can find. Trey Smith is the only one I believe that you don't currently have somebody on the roster who you could choose to re-sign that is young. Trey Smith fills that. Now, notice something else I did. Miami, San Francisco, and Kansas City. They ain't going to be able to match the money for the most part, because they're spending all that money in other places, right? They ain't going to be able to do it. That's why I target those 3 players. There's a lot that goes into this. We're going to look at draft possibilities. Let's get to it in segment number 3 here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Bilt Rewards. That's Bilt Rewards. Man, Bilt can save you money if you're renting. Anybody who's renting, let me tell you something. If you haven't heard of Bilt, you're about to thank me, because earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Bilt, Bilt. You don't even have to check with your landlord to start earning points that you can use toward flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, and even your next rent payment. Bilt points can be transferred to your favorite hotels, airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world where you can redeem your Bilt points. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not start earning points on rent that you're already paying by going to joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNFL. BILT.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join Bilt.com/LockedOnNFL to start earning points on your rent payments today. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars during bye week, as we are talking about the biggest needs in the offseason, even naming names. I hit free agency for you, and now I'm going to hit the draft. So, free agents, just to recap, we signed Trey Smith on the offensive line at right guard, big money contract. You send a message to Trevor Lawrence that you being upright in your protection. He's banged up right now. You being upright in your protection is our priority, and we're not going to sit here and just hope that we get that right. So we're going to also sign a veteran, Garrett at left tackle. On the defense, I'm going to get me a quarterback in the middle of the field. In the back end, Javon Holland. Those are three very, very good players for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, draft possibilities. We gave a couple of scenarios where you can move back, you can move forward. If you've done this the way I want to, you're not going to draft an offensive lineman in the top 5. If you've done this, like I said, and you ended up with Javon Holland at safety, but you didn't address corner, you very well might draft a corner in the draft. And you could also draft a wide receiver or defensive tackle. Now, for the sake of this, here's what I am going to do. Get a little tricky now. If the Jaguars end up with the number 1 pick, I move down. I try to find one of those teams that are sitting there in the top 3, top 4 that want to move up for a quarterback. So it becomes a little bit different, and it becomes easier for it to come into fruition and to gift. It's easier for you to pass by Travis Hunter at this point if you're going to get a bounty. And I think that there's some trepidation as to where do you play him. And I ain't trying to argue with people. I already made it. I think it's easier to be a full-time corner and a part-time wide receiver than it is to be a full-time wide receiver and a part-time corner. That's just me. I could be wrong. And then Travis Hunter could be the kind of person that you just say, you know what, he's going to break the mold, man. You can't say anything. Whatever all of your little NFL nuances goes out of the window with him, right? I can tell you this. I can imagine him playing corner for this team, and I can definitely imagine him and Brian Thomas Jr. in that huddle with Trevor Lawrence. Game makers, man, playmakers. We just talked about Javon Holland making the play that sparked the game. Travis Hunter is a dude that can make plays, man. And football character, you don't have to worry about it. And I'm not sure, too. There's some people that think that he's one of those high-profile guys that has to be in New York or L.A. I think Shador probably falls into that category a little bit more. Travis is a young kid that's like about to get married, and he's kind of a homebody, and he loves the process. He loves winning. I think he's from the country. So he's from South Florida, and then he lived up in Georgia. I really think he's the type of dude that's going to make wherever he is, he's going to make it home, because he ain't trying to be hanging all out on boats and taking pictures with guys like Odell used to and all of that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that makes it a little bit interesting. But if you get a bounty to move down, they're not going to take a quarterback. If you go ahead and trade somebody who is taking a quarterback, and then what's going to happen is if it's Shador, Travis is going number 2. And so unless you trade down 1 pick, you won't be in a position to take Travis Hunter. So it works out, and then it can make it more understandable to people also, because you need so much more. Just get the bounty and people will go, yeah, he's a great talent, but you got a whole bunch. Now, what do you get? I'm going with Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, because I think if you fix this, it's fixed for a decade. And he is I see what Braden Fisk does out in L.A., and I see guys like him that have that motor that he has. And he's 6'3", 320 pounds. He can actually stop the run. He plays hard, plays fast. He plays with a nasty attitude. I just see a line with him and Trayvon and Josh Hines-Allen, as long as they ain't being rotated out like they on the hockey team. And I just think that that would blow my mind, especially with the other things that we're talking about doing. Now, with Javon Holland on the back, Mason Graham in the middle of your defense, Foye Oluokun in the middle of your defense. Now you have a great player, I believe, at every level, right down the middle between the hashes, to go along with Trayvon and to go along with Tyson Campbell. I think that's a good start for this defense to do that. Now, I say this. If that's what they do, you're going to have options in round 2. Or even you could even have options to come back up if you're picking that high in round 2. Maybe you'll have 2 picks if you're able to move down. And this is where I think it gets very, very, very interesting. If you can get back into the first round, if you're Jacksonville, I think a good player to take will be Isaiah Bond, because he's 5'11" and 180 pounds. He plays outside. Don't get it twisted with his size. He plays outside, but he is fast. He is elusive. He can play in the slot. He's a game changer with the ball in his hands. I can just picture him and Brian Thomas Jr. Oh, my God, with the speed and the playmaking ability. He's a little bit smaller in stature than Luther Burden, but you're not going to get Burden. Burden's going in the top 10. He's like 25 pounds lighter than Burden. Burden is almost like a Jamar Chase clone a little bit, if you ask me. But I think Isaiah Bond is the type of catch and run, bit my tongue, catch and run player that would really, really fit in Jacksonville. Then, because they have not answered the question, like if they get that other pick on the outside, you can either go, this is the part where I think it'll be good for them to go corner. By the way, if not Isaiah Bond, I would say Kyron Lacy is the dude that the Jaguars could consider in the second round if they stay there and don't move. But if the Jaguars do have 2 high second round picks because of a trade, I like Siobhan Revel at East Carolina. He's a corner. He's 6'3", 193 pounds, and he'll be on a rookie deal. He can play, man. He is long. He is big. He is a game changer. That's where I would go if I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's the approach. One of the approaches, because there can be multiple. One of the approaches that I would definitely make or take advantage of if I'm Jacksonville. They can also then come back around in the third round, and they could get a guy like Tyler Booker, the guard out of Alabama, 6'5", 325, or Connor Colby, a guard out of Iowa, 6'6", 310, that they can put and post right there at left guard next to Garrett Bowles on the other side of Mitch Morse. And then you're looking at the other side where they have Trey Smith and then Anton Harrison. So I think this is how I would look at it. This is one way to look at it. I'm interested to find out what you guys think about that and what you would do, but trying to open up some possibilities. You guys have some optimistic hope moving forward. Y'all can check me out on Locked On NFL. It's 2 shows. One with Tyler Rowland in the morning, where the madman breaks the stories with the help of local experts early in the morning, like a double shot of espresso, and then you can come hang out at the barbershop with me on Locked On NFL in the middle of the day. All right, enjoy your weekend, off week, no postcast. We will see you next Monday, or if the Jaguars decide to do something before then, and there's some breaking news, I'll make sure I come back and hit you up. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the beautiful day here in North Florida. Take care of yourself, and we'll do the same.